Hey everyone, ever feel like you're drowning in to-dos, those daily things, but then there are those big goals, the ones
Mhm.
you really want to achieve, just kind of gathering dust on the shelf?
Oh, absolutely, that constant juggle, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're tackling in today's deep dive. We're exploring Focus behalten. So erreichst du deine langfristigen Ziele trotz Alltagsstress.
Catchy title, right.
It really is. And it's from lifearchitect.app. They're all about practical tips for, well, life. And this article is a gold mine for anyone feeling that pull between everyday demands and those long-term aspirations.
Totally. It's about working smarter, not harder, which is something I think we could all use a little more of, wouldn't you say?
100%. Now, the article jumps right in, stressing the importance of setting concrete, measurable goals.
Sounds straightforward enough.
It does. But if we're being honest, I think we've all been guilty at some point of having these vague ideas of what we want to achieve, but not really breaking them down into those nitty-gritty steps.
Absolutely. It's like trying to navigate a new city without a GPS, just kind of wandering around hoping for the best. And that's where this idea of backward planning comes in, which the article really dives into. You start with the end in mind, that big audacious goal, and then work your way backward, mapping out each milestone, each smaller task.
That makes so much sense. It's like planning a road trip. You wouldn't just hop in the car and drive aimlessly, right? You'd map out the route, figure out the stops you want to make, the sights you want to see.
Exactly. And having that plan, that roadmap, gives you a sense of direction, even if you encounter a few detours along the way, which, let's face it, life throws those at us all the time.
Speaking of detours, the article takes an interesting turn, talking about the power of vision boards.
Okay, vision boards. What did you think when you first read that?
I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical. I thought, is this just a fancy Pinterest board?
I hear you. But the article makes a really compelling case for them.
It does. So, how do they actually work beyond just being visually appealing?
It's all about visual cues. Our brains are wired to respond to imagery. Think about how much easier it is to remember a vivid image compared to, say, a line of text. When you surround yourself with images, quotes, anything that resonates with your goals, it's like having this constant visual reminder. Each time you see it, it reinforces your commitment, keeps you motivated.
So, it's about being strategic with those visuals, not just having them tucked away in a drawer somewhere.
Exactly. The article stresses the importance of visibility. Putting those vision boards in your workspace, on your bathroom mirror, even on the fridge. The more you see those visual cues, the more powerful they become.
I love that idea. Okay, so we're clear in our goals, using visuals to stay focused. But life throws curveballs, right? Our
Yeah.
priorities change, things come up. How do we stay flexible, adaptable, without losing sight of those long-term aspirations? And I think that's where the article's emphasis on self-reflection comes in.
Absolutely. And it's not about this intense, overwhelming self-analysis, but rather a regular check-in with yourself.
So, like a progress report for our goals.
Exactly. The article suggests monthly or quarterly reviews, asking yourself, am I on track? Do these goals still resonate? Do I need to adjust my timeline? Maybe even tweak the goals themselves?
That's so important because, let's be real, what motivated us a year ago might not hold the same weight today. Our lives evolve, and our goals need that space to evolve with us.
Precisely. And that's okay. It's about ensuring your goals work for you, not the other way around.
So we've got our goals, we're using those visual cues, but then there's the whole motivation thing, right? Because staying motivated, especially in the long run, can be a real struggle.
It really can. And the article actually addresses this head on, suggesting a bit of a perspective shift when it comes to those blah days, those times when our motivation just seems to have vanished.
Okay, because we all have those days, right, where we just don't feel it. So how do we reframe those moments instead of letting them derail us completely?
It's about recognizing that motivation isn't this constant, ever-present force. It's more like, well, imagine the tide, right? Ebbs and flows. Some days are high tide, some days are low tide.
So we should expect those fluctuations instead of getting discouraged when they inevitably happen.
Exactly. And the article even suggests viewing those low tide days as opportunities, a chance to rest, reflect, recharge, instead of viewing them as some sort of personal failing.
So maybe use that time to revisit our why, that driving force behind our goals, or even reassess if those goals still resonate with where we are in life.
Absolutely. It's about working with our natural rhythms, those energy cycles, instead of constantly fighting against them.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the article also delves into some really practical tips for staying on track, like this idea of chunking, which I found super helpful.
Chunking, yes, it's a game changer, especially when we're dealing with those bigger, more complex goals.
So instead of looking at the entire mountain we have to climb, it's about breaking it down into those smaller, more manageable steps.
You got it. It's about taking those big, maybe even intimidating goals and breaking them down into bite-sized action steps.
So instead of, let's say, writing an entire chapter of a book, we could focus on outlining one section or even brainstorming ideas for a single page.
Precisely. Because each of those smaller steps, when achieved, creates this sense of accomplishment, which then fuels our motivation to keep going. It's like we're building momentum.
It's like that saying, one step at a time, focusing on what's right in front of us, not the entire overwhelming journey ahead.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, the article brings up another common obstacle, one that I think a lot of us struggle with: perfectionism.
Ooh, perfectionism. That's a big one. It's like that friend who never actually shows up to the party because their outfit's not perfect or they think they messed up the recipe.
And just like that friend, perfectionism can really hold us back from, well, actually doing the thing.
Because if we're so afraid of making a mistake, we might never even start.
Exactly. The article encourages us to shift our perspective from striving for perfection, which is often unattainable and frankly a bit of a myth, to focusing on progress, on those small wins along the way.
So it's about embracing those missteps, those inevitable setbacks, as learning opportunities, not reasons to throw in the towel altogether.
Precisely. It's about adopting a growth mindset, recognizing that making mistakes is part of the process, not a sign that we're doing something wrong.
It's about giving ourselves permission to be human, right?
Exactly. Now, another strategy the article emphasizes is the power of positive self-talk.
Okay, this is where I think a lot of us, myself included, could use some work. Because it's easy to fall into those negative self-talk traps, right? To focus on what's not working or all the things we need to improve.
Absolutely. It's like our brains are hardwired to focus on the negative sometimes. But the good news is we can train ourselves to challenge those negative thoughts and replace them with more empowering, encouraging ones.
So it's about becoming aware of those negative self-talk patterns and consciously choosing a different narrative.
Exactly. It might sound a bit simplistic, but the words we tell ourselves matter.
Because if we're constantly bombarded with negative self-talk, it's going to be that much harder to stay motivated, to believe in our ability to achieve those goals.
Precisely. It's about creating a more supportive, encouraging inner dialogue. Remember, our thoughts influence our feelings, and our feelings influence our actions. So by cultivating a more positive internal environment, we set ourselves up for greater success.
I love that. It's like we're our own cheerleaders.
Exactly. Now, are you ready for a few more productivity-boosting tips? Or do you need a moment to process all this awesomeness?
Hit me with those productivity gems. I'm all ears.
All right, well, let's talk distractions. Those pesky things that seem to pop up at the worst possible moment.
Oh, tell me about it. My phone's notifications are like a symphony of distractions sometimes. It's like my brain can't decide what to focus on.
And that's exactly what those distractions want: our full attention, even if it's just for a few seconds. But the article offers a really simple yet effective solution: creating a distraction-free environment.
Okay, so are we talking like soundproof booths and meditation retreats here? Because that's a bit beyond my current reality.
Not at all. It doesn't have to be anything extreme. Even small changes can make a big difference, like silencing those notifications, putting your phone on Do Not Disturb mode, even using those website blockers if you're working on the computer.
So setting up those boundaries, those little digital fences to protect our focus.
Exactly. Creating a space where our minds can truly engage with whatever we're doing without those constant interruptions pulling us in a million directions.
I'm even thinking back to our vision board strategy. Maybe we need a Do Not Disturb sign for our workspace, too.
I love that. It's about being proactive and setting ourselves up for success, both internally and externally. Now, speaking of success, the article wraps up with a really important concept, and something I think we often overlook: celebrating our wins.
Oh, I love that. Because sometimes it's easy to get so caught up in striving for the next big thing that we forget to acknowledge how far we've come.
Absolutely. It's like we're constantly moving the finish line further and further away.
Ah.
But celebrating those wins, no matter how small, reinforces those positive behaviors. It reminds us that we're capable, and it keeps us motivated.
So instead of brushing off an accomplishment as no big deal, we should really take the time to savor it, to let it sink in.
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective from solely focusing on that end goal to appreciating the entire journey, those little victories along the way.
I love that because achieving those big, audacious goals, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And every runner celebrates those mile markers, those moments of progress.
Perfectly said.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I've walked away with a toolkit of practical strategies, things I can actually implement into my daily life to manage that stress and stay focused on my goals. I'm especially drawn to those ideas of self-reflection, celebrating our wins, and that whole concept of cultivating a more positive inner dialogue. But here's something that's been on my mind. The article focuses on those individual efforts. But what about the power of, say, collaboration? Could sharing those aspirations with others, even seeking their support and guidance, enhance our chances of success?
That's such a great point because, as they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mm.
And when it comes to achieving those big goals, having that support system, those trusted individuals we can share those aspirations with, can make all the difference.
It's like building a cheer squad for your dreams.
Exactly. And who doesn't love a good cheer squad, right? They're there to celebrate our wins, offer encouragement when we need it, and sometimes give us that little nudge when we need to get back on track.
And that's what makes this whole journey so much more rewarding. Yes, achieving those goals feels incredible, but doing it alongside others, supporting each other, learning from each other's experiences, that amplifies the entire experience. And you know what? I think that's the perfect note to end on. It's not just about conquering those goals. It's about fostering connections, embracing collaboration, and recognizing that while the journey might have its challenges, it's also filled with incredible opportunities for growth, learning, and achieving those amazing things we set our minds to.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now go out there and make it happen. You've got this.